Hello everybody and welcome to the first official full-length video on Step Back with Zach. I am your host, Zach, and today we will be discussing my upcoming predictions for the 25-26 NBA season. This is where we'll be going over the major awards. I will also be giving you guys 3 possible answers and then my ultimate prediction. So we'll see how it goes from there. I'm going to start with awards that people don't really care about as much and then work our way down to those more exciting awards. So starting with Coach of the Year, my 3 nominees are Coach Jamal Mosley of the Orlando Magic. I also have Coach Quinn Snyder of the Atlanta Hawks. And my final prediction will be Coach Ime Udoka. However, ultimately, I have gone with Coach Quinn Snyder of the Atlanta Hawks. Quinn Snyder, in my opinion, is going to win the Coach of the Year award, as I believe the significant changes to the Atlanta Hawks roster is really going to help bolster up those wins, where they went 40-42 last year, and I can see them getting maybe around 49 to 50 wins. So being able to increase that win count by 10 could be a great case for Quinn Snyder. However, the things that I can see kind of holding that back is the health of their latest star acquisition in Kristaps Porzingis, who notoriously is not very good at staying on the damn court. That guy gets injured more than I blow my nose in a day. It's crazy how often that guy gets injured. But yeah, Quinn Snyder, Coach of the Year, I can easily see that happening. Just like Quinn Snyder of the Atlanta Hawks, I can see Coach Ime Udoka of the Houston Rockets also making a great case for this award, as I believe with the dramatic improvements of the Houston Rockets this season, adding my personal favorite player of all time, and Kevin Durant, who is debatably the best half-court scorer the game has ever seen, will help dramatically improve that offense. Also improving the depth with the likes of Dorian Finney-Smith coming off the bench, also adding Clint Capella coming off the bench. They did trade away Dillon Brooks, however, but I think Dorian Finney-Smith will be able to cover that defensive hole that Dillon Brooks has left. No Jalen Green on the team anymore. Boo frickin' who, that guy stunk. And then finally, Jamal Mosley of the Orlando Magic. I can see in a really weak Eastern Conference this year, the Magic drastically scaling up, barring any injuries. Obviously, we know that both Paolo and Franz Wagner last year suffered incredibly rare injuries, to say the least, with torn obliques, I believe is what they were. But hopefully with a healthy season and the addition of guard Desmond Bane, they will be able to dramatically increase their wins. Now, moving on to the next award, I have the 6-Man Award, and my 3 nominees are Peyton Pritchard of the Boston Celtics, Ty Jerome of the Memphis Grizzlies, and one that I have not seen many people talk about, Trey Mann of the Charlotte Hornets. My ultimate prediction, however, is going to be Peyton Pritchard winning in back-to-back years. Bit of a boring pick, but I can really see a world where Peyton Pritchard's able to go back-to-back. The reason that I picked Peyton Pritchard for this award is because with the injury to Jason Tatum and the loss of Jrue Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis, the scoring is needing to go somewhere else. And coming off the bench, Peyton Pritchard will be able to increase his value and increase his role. I feel like a bigger offensive burden is really going to fall onto him. He could get more minutes as well if newly acquired guard Anthony Simons doesn't really pan out, or he's having a bad game or something, where statistically Anthony Simons has been the worst player in the NBA. Peyton Pritchard last year in his 6-Man of the Year award campaign averaged 14.3 points per game, 3.5 assists and just shy of 4 boards a game in almost 28.5 minutes on just over 40% from the field. A really good 41% from 3 and 84.5% from the foul line for a true shooting percentage of 63.3%. Now, considering that this award a lot of the time is just who can score the most points coming off the bench, with the likes of Jamal Crawford having won it multiple times, Lou Williams, Jordan Clarkson, and them lot, I can see with an increased scoring role and the fact that Pritchard's already won it, I can see him winning it again. As I said, I know it's a boring pick, but I feel like it's a good pick and a pretty safe bet. I can see him scaling his points per game from, as I said, 14.3 up to around 16 to 18. I can see that happening. Now, I also have Trey Mann here. Trey Mann was a little bit difficult because he is an elite scorer. He can handle with the best of them, and he's got great potential. Last year, however, he only played 13 games. But in those 13 games, he averaged just over 14 points per game on 43.5% from the field, which is not great, but hopefully he will be able to increase that and increase the efficiency coming into next season. Trey Mann's health is also in question quite a lot, as he has never played over 70 games in a season. The most he's played, I believe, is 67, and that was back in 2023. And then last year, or the year before last, he played a combined 41 games between the Thunder and the Hornets. And then, as I said, last year, and he played 13. So if he's not getting the 65 game threshold, he's obviously not going to win. I can also see him not really doing this. It's a bit of a wild take for the simple fact that not only do they have Spencer Dinwiddie back to come off the bench, but they also have another elite scorer in Colin Sexton. They're pretty similar archetypes in the fact that they score the ball. But I can see Trey Mann really picking it up. Now, Ty Jerome is my final pick for this award. Well, not final pick, final nominee. As last year, he made a really solid case, right, where he had a very, very efficient 51.6% from the field, scoring 12.5 points. However, he did not qualify for the award for the simple fact that he did not meet the 20 minutes per game threshold. He averaged 19.9. Are you shitting me? Dumb fucking rule, man. Anyway, he also had a true shooting percentage of 64.3%. As a point guard, that is pretty damn good. The reason I don't have him picked here, though, is because playing behind Ja and playing alongside Scottie Pippen Jr. coming off the bench, I can see his role being a little bit decreased. However, with Ja Morant's history, I can see Ja Morant not playing and Ty Jerome having to step up in a big way. Next, we are moving on to the Rookie of the Year award, where my three nominees are, of course, Cooper Flagg from the Dallas Mavericks, Trey Johnson from the Washington Wizards, and VJ Edgecombe of the Philadelphia 76ers, where ultimately I have gone with, and probably no surprise here, Cooper Flagg. Cooper Flagg was drafted with the first overall pick out of Duke by the Dallas Mavericks, where he averaged 19.2 points per game, 7.5 boards, and 4.2 assists on splits of 48, 38.5, and 84, which is pretty damn incredible for his size and position. At 6'9", Cooper Flagg is hyped to be one of the best prospects we've ever seen. Some people call him generational. I'm not quite there. I don't believe he's going to be a generational type talent. I think people are just being a little bit hyperbolic because they're bored. But that's not saying I don't see Cooper Flagg being a damn good player in this league. Cooper Flagg, his two-way ability is crazy. Like, that man, for being 18 years old, his defensive IQ is insane. He averaged 2.8 stocks per game in 37 games for Duke, both 1.4 in steals and blocks, by the way, if you don't know what stocks are. Stocks are combined steals and blocks. And with Kyrie Irving being out for probably the entire year and Anthony Davis's history, I can see a world where Cooper Flagg really has to step up and provide some much needed offense for this Dallas Mavericks side. A big weakness for Cooper Flagg, however, is his inability to really create off the dribble. He's a good three-point shooter. He's a good rim finisher. I just don't think that he's a very good on-ball creator. I feel like Cooper Flagg could be a little bit better of a playmaker and hopefully, maybe go from 4 assists to 5 assists. I can see Cooper averaging around 20 a game, especially with the injury to Kyrie Irving and the potential unavailability of Anthony Davis. Now, another pick, and I'm not really seeing this guy's name come up an awful lot, Trey Johnson of the Washington Wizards. Now, Trey Johnson had a very good season for Texas, where in 33 games he averaged 19.9 points per game on splits of 43% from the field, 40% from three, and 87% from the free throw line. Trey Johnson is one of, if not the best shooters in this draft class, right? Where he made 2.7 out of his 6.8 three-point field goal attempts. And he also broke a school record by a freshman, scoring 39 points against Arkansas, where the previous record was held by none other than Kevin Durant, who had 37, which is pretty goddamn impressive. I can see Trey Johnson really having to step up with this Washington Wizards team, as there's no real direction so far. They've got a lot of youth movement in Washington, with the likes of Alex Sarr, Bilal Coulibaly, Bub Carrington, Keyshawn George, all these guys, but there's no one that's really taken that I'm the leader role just quite yet. So I think Trey Johnson can be a really good player alongside those other players. He can be a spot-up shooter. He is, however, going to need to improve his defense, but I can see him making a sneaky case for this if he decides that he wants to score a lot and take that leader role. Now, finally, my final nomination for this award is VJ Edgecombe of the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, this one may be a little bit biased because VJ Edgecombe is my favorite prospect in this class. He's not going to score the most points. He's not going to block the most shots, but his athleticism is off the charts. This dude can bounce out of the gym. It's insane what he's able to do. And for being a 6'5" as well, he's a pretty damn good rim protector because of his surreal ability to bounce. However, I feel like VJ Edgecombe, as I said, he's not going to score the most points. I think his shooting needs to improve quite a bit, as in just shy of 5 attempts a game, he averaged 34% in college. While it isn't awful, there's definite room for improvement, especially at the NBA level. I would also like to shout out Dylan Harper of the San Antonio Spurs. I love the San Antonio Spurs. They're probably going to be my most watched team leisurely this season. Now, moving on to the Most Improved Player Award. Now, this award was it was probably the second most difficult for me to pick for a few reasons, which I'll go over. I have been able to narrow down my nominees, and I have picked the 3 that I can see potentially making a good case for this award. Derek White of the Boston Celtics, who is not someone I've seen come up a lot. Andrew Nembhard of the Indiana Pacers, and finally, Kyle Filipowski of the Utah Jazz, where my ultimate pick is Derek White of the Boston Celtics. Now, Derek White is in a pretty similar situation to what I said with Peyton Pritchard earlier, in the fact that with Jason Tatum being gone, someone's going to need to pick up that offensive load, and Derek White is going to be that guy. Derek White last year averaged 16.5 points per game, which was a career high for him on 44, 38.5, and 84 splits on a true shooting percentage of 60.6. Derek White has one of the best two-way impacts in the league, where he can guard the other team's best perimeter offensive players, and he can also knock down threes with the better of them. Derek White last year also finished top 10 in Defensive Player of the Year, while averaging 1.1 blocks per game, and he also holds the record for the most blocks per 100 possessions for a guard ever, while attempting over 9 threes a game. I can see a world where Derek White can really up his scoring average from 16.5 to around 20, because someone's going to need to score the ball. And with Derek White being the team's second best player next season behind Jaylen Brown, I can really see Derek White getting to that level. And I think if you don't, you kind of need to reevaluate what you're thinking. Derek White is one of my favorite players. And I swear to God, every single time I watch that motherfucker shoot the ball, I know it's going to go in. And it drives me insane. He's insanely talented. I think he can not necessarily do what Norman Powell did last year in terms of his scoring uptake, but I think that Derek White can really, really push for that Most Improved Player award. Now, my first runner-up is Andrew Nembhard of the Indiana Pacers. This one shouldn't really be surprising to a lot of you, as Andrew Nembhard is someone who is picked as a favorite quite commonly to win this award for this upcoming year, seeing as star guard of the Indiana Pacers Tyrese Halliburton is out with a ruptured Achilles for probably the whole year. Nembhard last year averaged exactly 10 points per game on a little over 8 field goals attempted, so I can see him increasing the amount of shots he takes to around 13 to 15 a game. He's still going to have to be sharing the floor with Pascal Siakam and Benedict Mathurin, who will also be shooting a bit more, but I think if Nembhard can take on a bit more of that scoring burden, he can make a really good case for this award. He will also probably be the team's leading playmaker next year, which is something that he hasn't really had to do, especially with Tyrese Halliburton being on the team. So it's going to be interesting to see how he steps into that role and develops. Andrew Nembhard really made a name for himself in these previous NBA finals. Now, I was going for the Thunder because I've always been a Thunder fan. However, Andrew Nembhard, what he was doing to Shea was insane. That was the best defense I think I've seen on Shea ever. He forced the MVP of the league to have 8 turnovers in an NBA Finals game. Are you kidding me? That's insane. Now, this is another out-of-field bit of a stretch of a pick, but I didn't want to be like everybody else and pick the same players because that shit's boring, and no one wants to watch that, right? You want to see some takes that are really get you thinking. So Kyle Filipowski really made a name for himself in this previous NBA Summer League, where he walked away with the Summer League MVP award in 3 games, averaging 29.3 points per game on 56, 39, and a terrible 62.5% from the free throw line. Where in the NBA itself last year, he averaged 9.6 points per game in comparison, while taking just over 7 shots a game in 21 minutes. Now, I can see his role dramatically increasing, seeing as John Collins is no longer on the team, and same with Colin Sexton, and same with Jordan Clarkson. those are three good basketball players who take away shots from Kyle Filipowski. So Kyle Filipowski was drafted out of the second round last year, so not the 2025 draft, the 2024 draft. And I can see him starting alongside Larry Marketing and Walker Kessler next year. And I think his scoring can dramatically increase. And with that boosted confidence from his Summer League performance, I definitely think he's got a shot for this award. Now, moving on next to an award that I don't really give a shit about, and not a lot of people do, to be quite honest, because it's kind of a weird, pointless award, the Clutch Player of the Year award. Now, this award is difficult to predict because how can we predict who is going to be clutch throughout the year? It's a little bit difficult. We can make speculations based on the clutch stats from last year and the previous winners, etc., but it is kind of a hard award to predict. My three nominees for this award are Nikola Jokic of the Denver Nuggets, Jalen Brunson of the New York Knicks, and Luka Doncic of the Los Angeles Lakers. My ultimate pick is going to be Nikola Jokic of the Denver Nuggets. Now, the reason that I'm picking Jokic for this award mainly is due to the fact that I think it's going to be a bit of a pity award, and you'll see why later. But Jokic was the runner-up for this award last year, where he was first in the league in clutch field goal percentage, and he was also second in the league for net rating during the clutch for players that played a significant amount of time there, and was also second in total points and assists in the clutch. I also have to shout out Jalen Brunson here because Jalen Brunson won it last year, and Luka Doncic. Luka Doncic in the clutch is just a beast that you don't want to have to deal with. Shout out Luka Doncic, one of my favorite players. Now, moving on to one of my favorite awards, the Defensive Player of the Year award. And again, this one's pretty obvious, but I'm going to give you my three nominees anyway. I have Armin Thompson of the Houston Rockets. I have Chet Holmgren of the Oklahoma City Thunder. And my ultimate pick, and if he's not your pick, you need to try again, Victor Wembanyama of the San Antonio Spurs. Victor Wembanyama is my favorite player in the league. So I'm going to talk about this one for a little bit longer than the other picks so far. Wembanyama last year, going into the season, was the absolute heavy favorite to win the award. Finishing second for this award in his rookie season, he was poised to win this award for the 2024-2025 season. And to be honest, he was going to win it. Right? Wembanyama made an incredible case for this award, where in 46 games, he averaged, we're just going to talk about defensive stats here because this is the Defensive Player of the Year award. He averaged 11 rebounds, 1.8 being offensive and 9.2 being defensive, along with a mind-blowing 3.8 blocks per game and 1.1 steals per game. So just shy of 5 stocks per game. With a 7'4" plus frame, and I think Wemby is taller than 7'4", and an 8-foot wingspan, his ability to cover the entire floor is unlike anyone else that we've seen, right? And in today's league, he is the scariest defensive player. One of the craziest stats about Victor Wembanyama last year is that although he only played 46 games, he was still able to lead the league in total blocks throughout the entire season, where in 46 games, Victor Wembanyama had 176 blocks, where second place Brook Lopez, who played 80, yes, 34 more games than Victor Wembanyama, only had 148. If Victor Wembanyama had played the same amount of games as Brook Lopez, getting 80, which is kind of a ridiculous number anyway, but if he was able to average 3.8 blocks throughout the whole season, playing 80 games, that would have gotten him 304 total blocks for the season, which would have placed him 22nd all time in a single season for total blocks. Are you kidding me? Keep in mind, this was only his second year in the league. Are you serious? I can see Victor Wembanyama breaking the record for the most amount of Defensive Player of the Year wins. The record is currently held by Ben Wallace, Rudy Gobert, and Dikembe Mutombo, who all had 4 each. I can easily see Wemby getting 5. I can easily see Wemby getting more. Victor Wembanyama also had an insane on-off split, where when he was on the court, the Spurs had a defensive rating of 112.1, and when he was off the court, it ballooned up to 121.6 for a league leading by a massive amount, 9.5 difference with him on and off the court. Are you kidding me? If you don't know what that means, by the way, defensive rating pretty much means when he was on the court, the opposing team per 100 possessions would average 112.1 points per game. And when he was off the court, that ballooned up to 121.6 points per game. That difference is mind-boggling. Considering that second place was like Rudy Gobert or something with 5.4. Victor Wembanyama almost doubled that, which is insane. Victor Wembanyama was able to hold opposing players to 13.5% below their average field goal percentage at the rim. And not only that, he doesn't fail the eye test either. You watch Wembanyama play defense, no one wants to challenge him unless you're Ja Morant after the whistle. But we're not going to talk about that because that hurts my feelings. Victor Wembanyama's defensive impact is immeasurable. That man is insane. Absolutely insane. For being 21 years old, his dedication to his craft is unlike anything we've ever seen. Victor Wembanyama, if you don't watch him, watch him. His ability to make defensive plays is insane. He has a case for potentially being, throughout his career, not right now, I can see him being the greatest defender that we've had in the modern era. And if that's an outlandish take, so be it. I don't think it is. Victor Wembanyama's defensive intangibles are insane. We just have to hope and pray that he stays healthy. Now, enough Victor Wembanyama glaze. We'll move on to Chet Holmgren. Now, Chet Holmgren is also completely out of this world on the defensive side of the ball. Although not having the same measurables as Wembanyama, where Chet measures in at 7'1" with a 7'6" wingspan, he is able to cover a lot of ground. He is exceptional at closing out on perimeter shooters. He's an insane rim protector where he led the league in the stat where he holds opposing players to 18% below their average field goal percentage at the rim, which of course leads the league by quite a wide margin. That is insane. Chet, surrounded by an incredible defensive cast, he was able to average 3 stocks per game, 2.3 blocks, 0.7 steals. If Wemby wasn't in the league, I can see Chet also being a very clear winner of this award. However, one thing I do think about Chet Holmgren is that he does need to put on some weight, right? You look at him and you think, damn, that guy is too skinny. I think if you breathe too hard around him, he is going to fly away. For being 7'1", only being 210 pounds, or for those of you that don't live in America, that's 94 kgs, that is way too little for someone who is 7'1", where the average weight, not just in the NBA, but the average weight of someone who is 7'1", which granted is not a lot of people, is between 250 to 300 pounds, or 113 kgs to 136 kgs. So yes, Chet Holmgren is very underweight. And you watch him, if he gets posted up by a player who's much bigger, like a Jokic or an Embiid or a Giannis, he is going to get the shit kicked out of him, and he is going to be bullied. Luckily for him, he has incredible defensive awareness under the basket, where he can still block shots. And finally, Amen Thompson. Wow, what a player. Amen Thompson is debatably the most athletic player in the NBA today, and is debatably one of the most athletic players we've ever seen. His ability to cause chaos on the defensive side of the ball and just be everywhere all at once and can guard 1 through 4, his ability to cause that chaos is unmatched. He will be in your face. He will force steals. He's a great help side rim protector for being 6'7" with a 7-foot wingspan. His defensive IQ as well is immeasurable. Amen Thompson averaged 1.3 blocks per game and 1.4 steals per game last year. And keep in mind, he was coming off the bench for a bit of last season. Do you think if he started and got more minutes, like if he started the entire season and he got those minutes to begin with, that number could be even higher? Amen Thompson's ability to fly around the court is unlike anything else we've seen. And he is the best Steph Curry defender that I have ever seen. And that is saying a lot. If you know how Steph Curry operates off ball, Amen Thompson is able to shut that shit down, which is not something that has been said for many other people at all. Shout out Amen Thompson, I love him very much. Now, the Big Boy Award, the award that I definitely had the most trouble predicting, the MVP Award, the Most Valuable Player Award, where I have narrowed down my nominees to Nikola Jokic of the Denver Nuggets, Giannis Antetokounmpo of the Milwaukee Bucks, and Luka Doncic of the Los Angeles Lakers. My ultimate prediction is Giannis Antetokounmpo of the Milwaukee Bucks. As I said before, this was very difficult for me to pick. And I would not be upset or mad or disagree if you were to pick either of those other two, or Shea, or maybe Ant, or Wemby as a potential dark horse. I wouldn't be upset, right? Because I can see all those things too. This award is very, very difficult, and I might change my mind tomorrow. For now, my pick is Giannis Antetokounmpo. Giannis last year in 67 games was third in the MVP race, where he averaged 30.4 points per game, which is good for second in the league behind Shea, on 62% from the field on a true shooting of 62.5. Now, you might think that true shooting percentage is really high considering those splits that I just told you, but Giannis did only shoot 0.9 threes per game, which is not a lot. He does have to improve that free throw shooting because that is abysmal. Has he ever averaged over 70% from the foul line during the season? I don't think he has. He needs to sort that out. Giannis was able to lead the Bucks last year to a record of 48-34 with the help of Damian Lillard. And although he's got a shitty coach in Doc Rivers, that was a pretty alright record, I guess. For this upcoming season, Giannis Antetokounmpo is going to have one of, if not the worst supporting cast we have ever seen from not only just him, but for a superstar player in general ever. Where his second best player is going to be former Pacers center Miles Turner. God help that man. The carry job that Giannis is going to have to pull off next season is going to be like anything that we've ever seen before. We know that Giannis really values winning. And he does whatever he can to win, right? So I can see a world where Giannis is going to increase his point per game from 30 to 33 to 35 while getting a lot of rebounds because Miles Turner is still a shit rebounder for being a 7-footer. And I can see him scaling up those assists. He's going to be playing more minutes because, as I said, he's got a shit supporting cast. No one is going to help him. And if Giannis, and this is a big if Giannis can propel the Bucks into a playoff push, I can see him making a serious case for this award. However, the thing is, if history is to tell us anything, the MVP award usually goes to the best player who's averaging the best stats on a top 3 seed in their respective conference. Like Shea last year, best team in the league. He won MVP. Last year, Jokic's Denver Nuggets had a great record. I think they were top 3. I think they were either the second or third seed, and he got MVP. Giannis, I can't see a world where he is a top 3 seed. I just can't. However, there have been some exceptions to this rule. It's not necessarily a rule, but there have been some exceptions to this in the past, where Russell Westbrook back in 2017, although he was the 6th seed, was able to win the MVP award because he had some insane stats where he averaged a triple-double for the first time in 55 years in 2017. Jokic as well back in 2022, I believe it was able to carry a sorry-ass, injury-riddled Denver Nuggets team to the playoffs as a 6th seed. Now, I can see this happening to Giannis, but it's also going to be some steep competition. So I can see Giannis doing it just because I know how competitive he is, but I can also see him not doing it. You know what I mean? Now, a very, very close runner-up that I had is my boy, my second favorite player in the NBA, Luka Doncic of the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, Luka Doncic had a fire lit under him, right, last year, considering what happened last season, where that bum-ass, stupid, brain-dead Nico Harrison traded him in his prime for an aging star player. Luka Doncic, yes, was a little bit overweight, but you push Luka and you make him have a reality check, the man lost 30 to 35 pounds, which is like about 16 kgs this offseason. He lit up Eurobasket just recently, looking skinny, cooking the defenses. Him being in Los Angeles, where the lights are super bright, and if there's anybody that can step up to those immense pressures, it's Luka Doncic. Being alongside a great mentor in the GOAT, LeBron James, it's really hard to see a world where Luka Doncic does not get better. Last year, Luka Doncic did have a bit of a down season, but get this, it was still a stat line of 28, 8, and 8. That, for most people, is incredible. But for Luka Doncic, that is a down season. Now, I can see the Lakers being a top 4 seed. I can see them also not being a top 4 seed, though. That's the thing. So if Luka Doncic can get back to 31 plus points per game while leading the Lakers to a top seed in the West, I can see him winning this award. And I need to give a quick shout out to the man who is undoubtedly the best player in the NBA, Nikola Jokic, who is also debatably the most valuable player in the league. Now, the reason I have you cannot talk about MVP race without talking about Jokic. The man averaged a triple-double last year as a center, becoming the third player ever to do so, where he averaged 29.5, 13 and 10 on 66.3% true shooting. When the man plays, they play like a 67-win team. When he doesn't play, they play like a 14-win team. The difference is insane, right? It's insane. Jokic's on-off numbers, his net rating, his all these advanced statistical categories, he thrives in. He is the GOAT of those advanced statistics. Now, the reason that I don't have him winning this award, however, is because of the improvements with the Denver Nuggets roster, which sounds a little bit weird, but they finally have a competent backup center for Jokic. And with a better supporting cast around him, he's going to be able to take a little bit of a step back and rest a lot more to save himself for the playoffs, so maybe make a finals push. That's why I can kind of see Jokic not making the MVP case that he has over the past few years. Now, finally, I'm not going to spend too much time about this. I'm going to be talking about my NBA champion. My NBA champions are going to be the Oklahoma City Thunder. For the first time in 2018, or since 2018, I can see a team repeating, and it is the Oklahoma City Thunder, where they've ultimately brought back the exact same roster, except Dylan Jones, who didn't play at all for them, while also adding in rookie Thomas Sorba and getting the added playmaking off the bench of Nikola Topic, who was their last year's pick. They improved, which is crazy to say. The Thunder, man, what can we say about the Thunder that hasn't been said already? Dominant, absolutely dominant last year with a record of 68-14, where they were blowing teams out. They led the league in steals per game with 10.3. They had a defensive rating of 106.6, which again means per 100 possessions, they only allowed the opposing team to score 106.6 points per game. The Thunder outscored their opponents by an average of 12.9 points per game, which is the new NBA record, which broke I think it was the 71-72 Lakers, who had the record of 12.3. The defensive dominance from the Thunder is something that we haven't seen before. They averaged 16.1 fast break points per game and 21.8 points off turnovers, which again, insane. And they are led by last year's MVP, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who won MVP, won Finals MVP, was an All-Star, was first-team All-NBA, who's also on the cover of 2K. If you are a Shai hater, pull your head out of your ass and realize how amazing this man is. They also have probably the best Robin in the NBA, Jalen Williams J-Dub, who made All-Defensive Second Team, All-NBA Third Team. They have Chet Holmgren, who we've already talked about today. They also have All-Defensive First Teamer Lou Dort. They also have AC Fresh, Alex Caruso, one of the best role players in the league, one of the best guard defenders in the league, if not the best. They also have Cason Wallace. They also have Aaron Wiggins. The supporting cast is insane. Coach Mark Daigneault is an incredible coach himself. You cannot really go into this next season doubting the Thunder. You can look at their blemishes in the playoffs, which were pretty drastic, I will say, as negatives. But that experience alone is going to make them better. The Thunder were not as good in the playoffs. They weren't as dominant. They swept the first round. They went to 7 against Jokic in the second round. They went 5 against the Timberwolves in the Western Conference Finals, and then they went to 7 in the NBA Finals, where, oh my God, that watching those games was insane. It just didn't look like the same Thunder team, right? The Thunder need to be better at shooting. They have no shooting, right? No reliable shooting, maybe outside of Isaiah Joe, Outside of Shea, they have no on-ball creation, especially coming off the bench. Their half-court scoring really lets them down, where they just kind of let Shea and J-Dub ISO. Chet Holmgren needs to figure out what the hell he wants to do on offense. If he's standing open on the perimeter, that motherfucker takes 5 seconds to decide what he wants to do. And when he shoots, it takes him an extra 3 seconds. It's so obvious to see when he shoots. The amount of times Miles Turner blocked him is insane. But ultimately, they did win the NBA championship, and I can see them doing it again. Now, that is all from me. I know this was a long video, but I appreciate it if you were able to make it the whole way through. If you have any questions or you think differently to any of my predictions, please let me know down below in the comments. Yeah, I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you very much for your continued support. We'll see you in the next one.
Rolling slow. Yeah.